Hiring a chief marketing officer or CMO is a long process. So, what can a company do as they are searching for their permanent CMO? Well, some are turning to interim CMOs or fractional CMOs to help bridge the gap. FinThrive did just that, and they hired Alan Gonsenhauser to be their interim CMO. But then they did something unique. When they found their permanent CMO, they retained Alan not just to help with the transition, but also to be a coach and a sounding board. This has worked out very well for FinThrive. When I heard about the story, I just had to get them on air. Hello and welcome to HitMic, where we explore the latest news, interesting stories, and technology trends in healthcare marketing. I'm Colin Hung, and today I am joined by Cheryl Alden, Chief Marketing Officer at FinThrive, Rick Plesko, Vice Chairman at FinThrive, and Alan Gonsenhauser, Interim CMO, Fractional CMO, and CMO Executive Advisor at Demand Revenue. Cheryl, Rick, Alan, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Colin. It's great to be here.
For the benefit of our audience, could one of you give a brief overview of what FinThrive does?
FinThrive is a healthcare company that is really trying to drive a change in the way the healthcare economy runs. And so we have a suite of revenue management solutions on a platform for healthcare providers, mainly acute providers, and as well as into some life sciences and payers.
Rick, let me ask you first. At a company like FinThrive, what is the primary role of a chief marketing officer?
It's a very, shall I say, comprehensive role, but if you dilute it down to two key things, it's all about building a brand and generating demand. That's it in a nutshell.
Wow, very short and sweet, Rick. I love it. Cheryl, what about you? In your opinion, what is the primary role of a chief marketing officer?
I think that the challenge with what is the primary objective, the primary role, is it's changing so much. So it really depends on the week that you ask me what it is. You know, really interesting around the evolution of what a CMO's role is really changing around the evolution of the customer relationship. And it's not, you know, it used to be the relationship that you want with the customer. Now it's the relationship that the customer wants. And so it's very, very different. So I think that's driving a lot of the changes in what the role for a CMO is. You know, a couple of areas that I think that we definitely need to focus on. One of them is growth. And so, you know, the CMO and marketing really is the tip of the spear for growth for an organization. And so have to take that leadership role with the go-to-market teams. The second one, and probably the most important one, is around customer experience or client experience. I think marketing has the best purview. We have the longest purview. The relationship with the brand starts with marketing. And so I think we have a very unique perspective and a unique role to play in terms of both experience design and delivery. And the last one, which I think is, I'm kind of living it right now, and I think a lot of CMOs can probably appreciate, is kind of becoming like the galvanizer, the aligner in chief as it comes to go to market. And so, you know, previously when marketing and teams, marketing was really responsible for marketing, and you would hand off to sales, you'd hand off to other teams. And now again, that sort of consistent unified customer experience is driving a change in the way that you work with different functions within the organization. And so marketing is really becoming that aligning go-to-market teams around the customer journey and the customer experience, which is a really exciting sort of evolution in the role as far as I'm concerned.
Wow, Cheryl, I really love that term that you used, aligner in chief. In fact, I may borrow that from time to time, if that's okay with you. It's such an accurate description of what marketing leaders are often asked to do. You know, bring different teams together and align them around a brand or a particular message or a go-to-market strategy. Well, let me ask you this, actually. So a little while ago, FinThrive, which was known as InThrive back then, before your recent rebrand, which, by the way, we covered as part of HitMic, you guys chose to bring in an interim chief marketing officer rather than bring on a permanent one. Rick, why was that the right move for the company at the time?
In one word, velocity, right? We needed to move very, very fast. You know, to hire a marketing executive of the caliber we would need, typically you allow anywhere up to a year to find that right person. Now, here we were sitting with, you know, a fantastic technology platform that we needed to rebrand quickly. We needed to put in a demand generation engine, get the new brand out to market. And we couldn't wait a year, for to have a chief marketing officer to go really help with that. So the choice was fairly obvious. We needed to come in with somebody as an interim CMO, while we executed that executive search.
Rick, what were some of the characteristics that you looked for in an interim CMO, and were those any different than what you looked for when you went hunting for your permanent CMO?
I would say, well, I think the first characteristic was availability,
Okay.
having somebody who we could get very, very, very quickly, So I would say, was it significantly different from the person we ended up putting in the role as a permanent solution? Not really, no, right? I would say the key thing was we needed somebody, one, with healthcare experience, because healthcare is a very unique market. It takes a long time to learn the vernacular, how things work, systems are complex. So healthcare experience was one. Two is we needed somebody with experience of brand building, right? Really, who knew what it took to actually just go out there from scratch, build a brand. And then three, we needed somebody who could build a marketing infrastructure to a high degree from the ground up. And the way we went about it, we first of all approached a number of agencies, right? And because there are quite a few agencies out there that offer fractional CMO services. So we approached those folks. And then in parallel, we sort of went out and trawled our network of, folks we knew in the healthcare industry. And because we're a private equity backed company, our private equity sponsor had a good network as well. So we actually trawled our network, and we found a very, very good candidate, Alan Gonsenhauser. He was actually recommended to us by somebody who was working on the actual sales side of the organization. And he ended up being a really great fit. One, because he had many years experience in healthcare, very well tenured, and experience specifically as a marketing leader who'd built brands and also marketing infrastructures from the ground up. And honestly, it's oftentimes hard to find somebody with both of those skills. You tend to find somebody who gravitates toward a brand or branding, or somebody who gravitates more towards, a demand generation, building a demand generation engine. And the other thing we liked about Alan, which is the icing on the cake, he'd actually been an analyst at a couple of well-respected analyst firms, Sirius Decisions and Forrester. So he really understood the market, the players, the businesses, and that was the icing on the cake that I really think, sealed our relationship with Alan.
What was Alan able to achieve at FinThrive during the time when he was the interim CMO?
Well, he actually hit the ground running. And the first thing he did was obviously laid out all the groundwork for building the new FinThrive brand. And that was, okay, let's talk about who we are, what our messaging is to our target persona, our target to customers, as it were. So we started repositioning the brand, and then realized we needed to create an interim website, even under the FinThrive name, to have, a better, at least an interim brand identity or property while we went through the renaming exercise. So, he worked hard, he and the team worked hard on putting together, website, new collaterals, new messaging, etc., all for this interim phase, gathering customer testimonials, and then building the sort of integrating solution message across a very rich and diverse product line. And so that was all on the branding side. And then he led the team putting in a new marketing technology stack, as the underpinnings of the demand generation engine, and obviously led the marketing organization as a whole, and started bringing in the new talent to sort of really bolster up the organization. So he had quite a big job on his hands during that interim period.
So Alan, let's get your perspective. What are some of the accomplishments that stand out for you while you were FinThrive's interim CMO?
It was really a frenetic time because private equity has high expectations, and it was fun. But there were four things that really stand out. So the first is I assessed the marketing team and infrastructure, what the strengths were and what gaps there were to fill. That was really important to do. Secondly, I brought in a lot of vendor resources to begin to fill the gaps in the demand process, public relations, branding, the MarTech stack, and customer testimonials. Third, I created a 3-year financial model and plan to build the required marketing infrastructure over time and the marketing organization, and also obtained approval from the CFO. So there was a plan that was ready when Cheryl came in to build her staff and infrastructure. And the fourth thing is I also positioned with the staff an interim brand to better explain the business we were in and our value proposition, and began the process of rebranding from FinThrive to FinThrive.
So the way I understand it, while you were working with Alan and as he was working on these projects, you continued your search for a permanent CMO, and that search eventually led to Cheryl here. But once you named Cheryl as the permanent CMO, you decided to keep Alan on as a coach. Can you walk us through that?
One was obviously there was a transition period where Alan needed to hand over. And then two, we're strong believers in providing sounding boards or enabling sounding boards for our executive team members, because the old adage is lonely at the top has never been truer, especially in marketing, because marketing is one of those disciplines where everybody assumes they're a marketer. Everybody has the best idea for really what you should do and how you should do things. And you often find yourself in challenging situations as a chief marketing officer trying to, drive new initiatives for demand generation or branding through. So it's always really, really good to have somebody who you can call up and say, hey, what do you think about this? What's the rationale? Somebody who's a sort of peer in your discipline and can really bounce good ideas off and refine and hone them. So that role is extremely valuable and something we're incredibly supportive of.
So Cheryl, when you arrived at FinThrive, Alan was just wrapping up his interim role. How did that transition work between you and him?
It was a really interesting one, because the way that I found out about that, I was actually at an ELT offsite, and I had heard them speaking about their interim CMO and Alan, and then finally someone kind of figured out and said, do you know Alan Gonsenhauser? And I said, yes, of course I do. So they said, well, he's the interim CMO. So it was really interesting. And, from my perspective, it was like having a friend there doing your onboarding. So you start a new organization, you don't know anybody, and sort of walk in with Alan. So we immediately just connected. And then just, he was really driving a lot of the onboarding in the first, at least the month and then beyond that I was there. So it was fantastic to have, a friendly face there to greet me with open arms into the marketing team.
So Cheryl, it sounds like it was really helpful to have someone like Alan there, and he was able to maybe accelerate some of the learnings and some of that transition. Am I correct?
I cannot tell you how valuable that was, because usually when you're joining an organization, you're replacing somebody that hasn't been there for, the position's been vacant for weeks or months, and you spend the majority of your time trying to sort of reconstruct. It was like, the accident where they're reconstructing what happened. And it takes so much of your time focused on the history. And so I think that's one thing, as I was able to get up to speed really quickly, because Alan could and speaking my language as well. You're also trying to get the understanding of the marketing organization from other sort of functional owners who aren't really marketing professionals. And so they have a different perspective. So having a marketing professional in place there to sort of hold my hand as we came on board was definitely got me focused on the go forward plan quicker, and definitely cut back on the time that I spent trying to catch up, if you will.
Alan, once again, I want to get your perspective on this. Can you describe for us what it was like to work with Cheryl as an executive coach?
Cheryl is wonderful. She's great to work with. She's very open to new ideas, to continuously improve marketing's effectiveness and performance, and also to gain cross-functional alignment. So it's been a pleasure working with her, really, over this time.
It really does sound like the transition between Alan and yourself went really smoothly. And it wasn't like you had to come in and immediately had to clean house or start up from scratch. Like a lot of the foundation work that Alan had put in, sounds like you were able to just leverage that and run. Is that right?
Right, exactly right. And again, kind of back to Alan's focus on best practice from his journey across his career. I also knew coming in that he was putting the right things in place, and so it wasn't reinforcing bad habits. He was putting best practice process in place. He was doing best practice education in place, and so we were very much aligned in that immediately. So I could just pick up on what Alan. I didn't have to deconstruct anything. I could just pick up with what he started, and allowed me to go a lot faster, and in turn give faster results back to the business.
So Cheryl, as we heard from Rick earlier, Alan is still involved with FinThrive, but now more in the coaching role. I'd love to hear your perspective on how it's like working with him in that capacity.
Absolutely. So, when I joined FinThrive, there was, the mandate was to rebuild part of the marketing organization. So a lot of, very fast-paced growth. FinThrive is an emerging leader in the space. We had made 2 big acquisitions, in the past year. And so having Alan on board for that continuity for the team was really important for me. So there was so much change happening. Actually keeping Alan on board was helpful, not just for coaching for myself and having somebody to bounce ideas off of, but for the rest of the team that he was working with. Just having that in place while I built out the rest of the organization gave them some comfort that they had somebody to go to, and then there was some consistency there. So it was very helpful.
Well, we're getting close to the end of our time together, so I would just want to ask a final couple of questions. Rick, what advice do you have for other companies who are looking for a chief marketing officer?
I think the first thing is to define your requirements clearly, and obviously prioritize them into the must-haves and the nice-to-haves, as it were, and then really don't compromise on those must-haves. Like, for example, we said, we need somebody with healthcare, brand building, and demand generation engine builder. That's it, those 3 things. And we couldn't compromise on those at all. There are a great number of fractional CMO firms out there that do have really, really good candidates on their roster. And so I would recommend starting with those folks first, unless obviously you have, like as with the case with us, you can find the talent within your own network.
And Cheryl, your turn. What advice do you have for other CMOs who may be early in their journey at a new company?
One of them I kind of already spoke to about understanding your blind spots. So, as you're building out that team, as you're joining the organization, really looking for those opportunities to see where you're not going to excel. And as you're building out your team, fill those gaps and surround yourself with good people. I recently read a book, Patrick Lencioni's book, and it was talking about the different profiles of people and 6 types of personality types, and then looking at within your own team, you have different people with different skill sets, and ensuring that you have complementary skill sets. And sometimes that's people inside the organization, and sometimes that's people outside of the organization, like Alan, that can supplement that intelligence. So that really is my focus: surround yourself with good people and figure out exactly how to do that.
Final question for you, Alan. What advice do you have for companies or leaders who may not be as familiar with the interim or fractional CMO concept?
Actually blogged a lot about this on my website. What are the top factors to look for in an interim CMO or a CMO coach? But I would say, none of us know everything. So, the experience we bring is really important, but the value of our networks is really important too. So we can tap into resources that are really important depending on the situation, in addition to the experience we bring.
Cheryl, Rick, Alan, thank you so much for being on the program today. Really appreciate all the wonderful information that you shared. I really enjoyed the different perspectives that each of you brought to this unique story of going from an interim CMO, hiring a permanent CMO, and then transitioning to an executive coach.
You are most welcome, Colin, and thank you so much for having me. We really appreciate it.
I was thrilled to be here, Colin. Thank you.
If you would like to find out more about FinThrive, visit their website at FinThrive.com, where you'll find a lot of great information about their products and services. If you would like to learn more about Alan Gonsenhauser, check out his website at demandrevenue.com. And hey, if you enjoyed this interview as much as I did, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give us a review on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you're listening and watching this. Also, head on over to hitmic.com to access free resources, get tips on healthcare marketing, and connect with PR, communications, and marketing professionals in healthcare. I'm Colin Hung. Thanks for being here.